Yo, what's up, guys? Man, it's been a very long time since I've streamed. How's everyone doing? This is gonna be pretty rusty, but if you guys have any questions today, yeah, it's just been super long. I've got a few stocks I want to talk about this week, and basically earnings is back. So, man, I forgot how to do all this, honestly. But if you guys want to support my channel, just drop a like, please. What I'm gonna be doing today is covering a few stocks that I'll be watching and different ideas of how you can play them. And if you have questions, let me know in the comments and drop a like if you can. So I've already highlighted some of the ones I'm interested in. Spotify, big week. So Monday's pretty much dead, not much going on. And I try to minimize to the ones that I would most likely actually play because there's a few interesting ones, but I think Spotify, Microsoft, Alphabet, Disney, not Disney, Snapchat, Visa, Teladoc, Texas Instruments, AT&T I would normally not play, but they're trading at like 1990s prices. So I think I might need some exposure there for earnings. You could also possibly wait for Verizon's earnings on Tuesday and then kind of pivot off of that. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting just because they're like being sold off every day and stuff. Meta, I think, will be the most interesting one out of the bunch. And then Crocs, MasterCard, Royal Caribbean's another good one, I think. So there are a few good ones in here. Yeah, just I think to start off, I would probably talk about the one I'm actually currently in. That's actually Alphabet, which is Google. And the reason I'm playing this one is because technicals, there's like a nice pennant. I'll show you guys in a little bit. Man, I don't even know how to organize this video today. But basically what I was trying to do is, I'll show you guys. So let me go to Google. What I was trying to do with this one is if you go to the 15-minute, we'll start with Google, and that's a good starting point. Then we'll kind of pivot if you guys have any suggestions on stocks to look at. And we'll look at flow and we'll look at some of the expected moves for these. I think this is a good starting point. I know last week we had Tesla and Netflix. That kind of set the sentiment for Thursday and Friday for sell-offs. So let me go back to QQQ. Yeah, so Thursday and Friday were basically like hard pressed downwards because earnings were pretty much decent, but I think a lot of the reason that we didn't, like Netflix and Tesla didn't run up, is because all month everything was running up into earnings. So at this point, a lot of those earnings or numbers were kind of baked in. And that's basically, they beat, but there wasn't like a very good, solid, strong, enthusiastic beat. So priced in basically. And so Thursday and Friday we sold off. And basically what I'm looking here on QQQ is we have two gaps. We have a gap there and a gap here. And actually I can probably show you guys better in like a 1 hour chart. And so we've got a gap there and a gap here. But I don't think, I mean, if we break 370, if we break 375, then yeah, we're gonna fill the gap down to 373. But I do think that second gap will probably be a trap. So basically what I would be thinking is if we come down and fill that gap, kind of bounce off around this support here, and then here bounce higher, just because we have a gap to the upside still. So I don't think the crash is nowhere here yet. I mean, at this point, I think the market would wait for earnings. We'd wait for Powell on Wednesday. Man. And then if anything escalates off that, then yeah. Plus, I think the NASDAQ rebalancing is effective on Monday. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to stay bearish if Powell comes in line with everything. I'm all over the place right now, but let me go back to Google. So last week we had Tesla and Netflix, and they basically beat, but it wasn't like very enthusiastic, so they sold off. And so that's the only thing that's concerning for a lot of the stocks is we've kind of ran up pretty aggressively for like a month. And then now earnings are here, but it's like, can we really get more out of it, right? Since we've been going up pretty much every day or every other day. So That was last week, but this week I'm going back in circles, but basically last week was not really the start of earnings. This will be the start of earnings, I think, because this will give us a better idea of consumer spending, ad spending, just like a better idea. So consumer spending is with Visa, MasterCard, and we did see some of that with Amex last week, and I think they missed, or they didn't do as well as people were thinking. At least it sold off. So, but this will be the start. This will actually set the tone, because we have Meta and all these this week, but then next week we have probably Apple and Amazon or something like that. So, plus we get some more travel earnings. So Royal Caribbean, Southwest Airlines, and I think there was another one. Alaska Airlines, there's another one though. Oh, Hilton's, yeah. So that'll be interesting. Okay, but what I was talking about with Google is if you look at the 15-minute, you can see basically consolidated all day Friday. I guess end of Thursday I started consolidating here. So this is a pennant, in my opinion. So I think Monday is going to be either a gap up or a gap down, just a breakout. But I did add this downtrend resistance. So I think we'll probably shoot to like 122, maybe a little under that, and then come back down, retest this resistance, and then we could possibly push higher. If it just breaks to the downside, this is another possibility here. It's a downward pennant. So we're just going to break to the downside and then fill this gap there. So those are the two scenarios, obviously 50-50, of course, but I'm leaning to this upside because if you go to like maybe like a 4-hour, you could probably see it. This kind of looks like a giant bull flag. Basically, it's this right here. So we've consolidated, and this is the flagpole here. So basically, we consolidated, broke out, and retested the support or resistance. And if we can start pushing up higher, that would give me some pretty good optimism. And the end target for that would be something similar to the bull, which would just be a copy paste, and then you can just put it here. And so we're looking at like 137, 140, which would be around, let's see, near the highs, I guess. It would be around this area, right there. But yeah, I think this looks good. Another thing is, it does kind of look like an inverse head and shoulders. I don't know if you guys see it, but we have a shoulder, a head, and then possibly another shoulder. I think we're gonna retouch that 140 at some point. Basically that'd be, basically that would be the long, that's not getting any better. Basically that would be the long-term target, like up to this point here. So that's what I'm playing. I'm actually playing Google. For earnings, I guess I should go over expected earnings. Google expected earnings move would be, this is unusual wealth. If you guys want to sign up, you can. It's in the link below. If you want 5%, just include my code if you want to save. But you can make a free account. Implied move is $6 or 5%, which is pretty nice. And so what I'm playing with this one is earnings is at the close of Tuesday. I was going to try to get this breakout here. Try to break it, maybe retouch the 22, 23 level. Premium is going to go up on options because people are basically piling into options to play the earnings. But I will not play into earnings or through earnings. I'm just going to take my profits, if there's any profits, ahead of it. And then I will just move on to the next play. But I think this will be a good earnings because the earnings per share has been pretty much going up. I mean, I know that doesn't tell you much, but their earnings expectations year over year is going to grow. So this is from last quarter, I think 120, and they're expected to do about like 130. So I think it's going to be interesting. And I know last year there was a lot of like fear about ad spending and stuff like that, and recession last year or this year, but nothing has happened. So I feel like we can possibly push or kick the can down some more. And people are talking about recession next year. So the market won't care about it until it happens, and so market could just keep going up, you know. And I think that's what I have for Google. So I said expected move is 5%, and actually I didn't tell you the price, which was $6. So like 126 would be up to like the high of this, and then to the downside would be like 115 or 110. Let me just do the percentage. So it's a 5% move. Let's just say we're here. 5% move is like 113, and then to the upside would be like 126. Yeah, so $6. But yeah, what I like about Google is that pennant on the 15-minute and then a bull flag of some sort on a longer time picture, like this consolidation retest. And so I think if we can get back outside of this downtrend resistance, I think it'd be interesting to watch. I'm already in this one because I saw this and I'm a gambling man. So I want to see if it breaks to the upside. And the one thing I will say that I'm nervous is about this gap down here. Like Google loves to fill their gaps, so which surprisingly it could be a gap trap. So if you see, we had a gap down here, and we came down. People started getting puts right here, right? People start getting puts here to fill the gap, and then it's gonna do the opposite. The market always does the opposite. So that's why I wanted to play it to the upside too, because, you know, pin it, okay, it's gonna break down to the downside and fill the gap, but market will do the opposite. It could just go up. Okay, same thing with QQQ. This one hasn't came true yet, but we've got two gaps. We got a gap there and we got a gap here. And so, and yeah, it loves to fill the gaps, right? So you see a gap down and came back up, filled the gap, and then came back down. So we could do that. We could come down, fill this gap right here. And I think this one will be a trap. So we come down here and then go up higher. And that would kind of go with our ascending support here. So we could do that. Or it could just not even break this, because it's been holding pretty well. This is like 6 or 7 1-hour candles, basically a whole day on Friday and probably second half of Thursday. It held above the 375. And so that kind of kept some of those calls in the money. So that's, yeah, we just had a big expiration day. So, I mean, I think it looks strong still. You could also argue this is kind of like a pennant to the downside as well. Surprisingly, also a lot of stocks look like they have a head and shoulders forming. Hopefully this is not one, but if it is, then we would probably have one more leg up, probably to 380. I think, me personally, I think with QQ or QQQ, I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna make a double top up here. So it'd be like one, and then we come back up, and that would fill this gap up here. So we would have this double top there, and then after that, come down here and just go ahead and fill those gaps if you want at that point. But the market always likes to retest levels. So like we came down, but we never really came up there and retested to see if we could go higher. So that still has to be tested, I think. And so I think we're gonna go higher. Plus we're in like an ascending trend still. So until like we start breaking this level here, I would stay bullish. What do you think? But yeah, let me get back on track. I think I covered Google decently. If you guys have questions, I didn't look at flow. I mean, we could, but Google's one that has a lot of option activity, so it's hard to actually look at. But we'll see what's actually, let's do one thing. We'll just look at the biggest open interest for this coming week, just to see where most of the money's going. So let's do like options chain. And we're going to do the 728. Yeah, expiration. So 120s. Actually, so this is one thing, another thing that I liked about Google was that we actually closed most of, well, it's not certain, but at least 23,000 contracts were held at the open of on Friday. Some of those might have been closed. We won't find out, but at least 23,000 contracts were there on Friday, and we closed above it, so these expired in the money. So that kind of adds some buying pressure to the stock. Everything else expired out the money. The 22s, 23s were the ones that had a lot. But for next week, most of the open interest looks to be on the 130s and the 125s. To the downside, you don't have that much open interest. I mean, you have the 115s, and yeah, there's a lot of open interest on these though, 13,000 and 125s. So the 125s kind of cancel out with the 115s about, but there's definitely more, and there's a lot of volume on these 122s. So there is some volume here. So and some volume on the 110s, but most of the volume's to the upside. So that's kind of optimistic for my position. Yeah, I'm gonna stay bullish going into earnings. The 130s are interesting. There's volume on the 129s, the 122s, and even the 120s. They don't matter too much because they're kind of already in the money. But to the downside, you have the 115s, which we talked about with that open interest, and the 120s. I think that's it. So more volume to the upside. The technicals look more bullish, I would say. Let's just wrap up Google really quick. Like I said, technicals look good. That pin, it's going to give us a breakout, either to the upside or to the downside. It's going to give us a move, better put. And then, yeah, 5 or 6%. So about 125. Dang, I covered Google pretty bad. Let's try that again with a different stock. So I'm going to move on to my second pick. That's going to be Crocs. So it's on Thursday at open. So any of these plays I'm not going to play going through earnings because the earnings are very unpredictable. But based on charts, so chart Crocs, CROX. What I saw on this one is basically a potential head and shoulders here. So basically what I see is got a shoulder, a head. Oof, that didn't come out good. I don't know what's going on with my cursor, but I don't know if this shoulder, it looks kind of small, but it's supposed to be a head and shoulders. Anyway, it looks bearish, but I think we would have to wait for that 120 break, which is, or we could come down to 120. You could probably trade this to 120. I know we just talked about gaps and how gaps could be traps. But this one technically partially filled. So it came down partially. It's looking like it'll probably retest that again. Looks kind of weak. So I kind of want to play this to the downside based off some of those. And let's look at what this is saying. This is saying technicals is neutral. But if you zoom out, this kind of looks good because you have a double bottom here. Right, you have a gap up here. That looks very, very enticing. So I'll probably play this to the upside. I would wait for it to see if it comes down here and retest some of these levels. I mean, it might not even come further, but this looks like a very interesting setup, I would say, right? Because you've got a double top or double bottom here, retest of like a neckline of some sort. So you could wait for like that 120 if you want to be patient. But then it could keep going higher if it holds the 120. I would say if it holds like the 120 level, then it would probably go higher. That's my opinion. I don't know why I have this line here. Probably had it from a while ago. Honestly, I think this is a strong support anyways, because you've had history back here, and it usually does pretty good. Around this level, it usually does pretty good. So it might not even come down further. But I would wait for this area and for a bounce back up to 130 going into earnings, and it could fill the gap after earnings. Yeah, I think Crocs is a very interesting one. Let's look at the expected move for this one really quick. I only got a few stocks on watch this week. That's Google, Crocs, and I'll show you guys the other 2 or 3 I have. Implied move is 8.5. So this will probably move, let's see. From here, let's say 8%. So about 133. 8.5. So about 112. So about $10 to the downside, and then about $10 to the upside. About $10 in general. But this one looks good because the double bottom's there, retesting this neckline of some sort, kind of partially filled the gap there that it had, and then we've got a gap to the upside. So that's basically my target. So usually a lot of the gaps fill. So this one's one I'm going to be watching. Like I said, this is a very heavy area of historically traded right here around this. So I think this will be a strong support. If the market's pretty strong, then I would expect a bounce here. And we could look at some flow also. Let's just look at what's the most open interest stuff for next week really quick. Does my mic work, by the way? Because I didn't even check if my audio is working. It's just been a long time since I've made a video. I was just handling some business. So here's the 130s though. These have the most open interest, the ones that we were talking about. So for next week, 728, hardly any open interest to the downside. And then you've got the 1300 and the 35s, 1900. So I'm going to check these out actually because I'm curious to know when these started coming in. So they came in end of June. They came in at about $1.27. They're actually $4 right now, and they're still in there. So these came in at about 127, and they held overnight. They have not gotten out. They're still in there for profits. So these are about 400%. Wait, no, like 300%. That's kind of crazy actually. I didn't see this order come in, but if I would have seen it on the flow, that's interesting. So let's look at the 135s. I want to look at the 135s. When did these come in? They came in on the same day. So 75 cents. They're currently 287. It looks like there was some volume in here, but it didn't stay. So it didn't carry over for some reason. That's weird. So I guess they closed those positions, not sure. But there's still at least 1,500 contracts open. Well, 1,900, but we want to say that they're probably still in there because it's above the 1,500. So it's probably the 1,540 that got added, and then like some other small traders. They're up about 300%. These 130s, 135s. I will keep an eye out on these this week to see if that changes, like going into earnings. If it doesn't, that means they could be seeing more upside. I mean, they're already in profit, but yeah, I like Crocs. Crocs is one that I think moves most of the time. So it moved here pretty aggressively and moved here pretty aggressively. November, you could say it moved going into earnings. So the day before it did a big move, and then post earnings did another jump. But yeah, I like Crocs. I don't think a lot of people have eyes on this one. I mean, you can just tell because there's not that much volume on the option side. So not that many people trade this one in the options. But yeah, I think this is kind of a sleeper. It can go both ways, of course. I mean, if it breaks the 120, then it can start getting, coming down to that 113 range. But yeah, I like Crocs and I like GOOGL. Probably won't play them all the way into earnings, but I would like to keep them ahead of earnings on watch. The other two that I was talking about is obviously Meta. So before the sell-off on Friday and Thursday, I was kind of already, well, once I saw that Tesla and Meta like were gonna sell off on Thursday and Friday, because it just wasn't it. You could see it after hours on Wednesday, like the market was selling off. So I was like, okay, all the market's gonna sell off. And so I wanted to, yeah, see, this is what I had charted up on Meta. I wanted to see this break right here on this support. It did, and it just started selling off after that. My plan was going to be like a double top here, but I mean, it didn't even give a break. I guess it did give a few hours. This is 1 hour, about 3 hours of break. Like it just hovered around there for like 2 or 3 hours, and you can just get that flush down. This is what I was watching a while ago. I just completely messed up because I was trading some other stuff. So here's a recap of my trading week. Let me look up my trading week really quick. So I've been doing pretty good for like 2 weeks. I've been on an upward trajectory. Just trading. This week though, I only made $200 actually. So let's see. Yeah, the last about what's that, July 11th, from July 11th up till, so I think is that 2 weeks or 1 week? I guess I did pretty good for 1 week. Yeah, so I had one good week, and then I just gave most of, not everything, but the way my portfolio looks like right now is like last week was right there. No, this is like 2 weeks ago. I had a good week on last week. Let's do LW. Had a good week 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. I had a good week 2 weeks ago. And then this last week, I was doing really good up until Thursday and Friday. And then I ended up the week flat, basically. So I'm still up, but I basically gave a lot of returns Thursday and Friday because I was stuck on a play, and then I just didn't. I was kind of stubborn. So, but anyway, the thing with Meta here is like you broke major support, I guess, on this closer time range from last week to this week. But now you're kind of like at a pretty good area of support. So that's going to be like this level where it touches 287. So around here. I think once it starts coming down, it's only like $7 more. It could get a small relief bounce. That's the level that I'll be watching. But what I want to wait for this one is actually Snapchat earnings, because they report ahead of them. So if they do good, well, even Alphabet, you could wait for Alphabet and Snapchat, and then you could just play Meta. Because if these two do good, this one's probably going to go back up to 310, 315, just because this sell-off was like unwarranted, or what's the word? It was unnecessary. It was, I don't know what the word is. Yeah, I just don't, it was not reasonable to sell off like that. Just like that, just because it was doing good, right? And then just because of someone else's earnings, like they haven't got a chance to prove themselves. Basically, is my point. The only thing I would say about Meta is it's ran up pretty big, but then again, it doesn't even matter because there's stocks that you would think have topped out or are close to topping out, and then they push higher. So like example is Nvidia topped out, you would think, right here, and it just went higher. Microsoft is another one. It's just, the market is very crazy right now. You would think this topped out, and then it just went higher for a little bit, and it probably will keep going higher. Apple is another one. Apple. It says Apple. Yeah, you would think it topped out, right? And then it just went higher. So that's why I'm not too worried that this one still has to match highs. If the market's going to stay where it's going to stay, then you want to think this one goes back to 350. Netflix is another one that just went crazy, right? I mean, it went back up to these previous lows, which is the 375-ish. And it didn't fill the gap. It didn't completely fill the gap. So that's a very good reason that this will probably go back up higher. It's already partially filling the gap, and this is just probably an unwarranted sell-off. It'll probably go back up. I think it's got to touch the 500 before it can start downtrending. And then what's the other one I had on my mind? I can't remember. So, oh, Tesla. But yeah, nah, Tesla's a different beast. I don't even want to trade Tesla because it's difficult to trade. Okay, so if I had to say, I think we did good on Alphabet. Crocs are good, interesting. First Solar is the one I want to trade. I think this one would be interesting to the downside, just because, okay, I think a lot of people probably have their eyes on in phase. So let me go back up here. They'll have their eyes on end phase, but I'm going to try to play First Solar because this one, if you go to the daily, their earnings is always pretty interesting to watch. You can see this one gapped down here. What was the one down here? It gapped up. It gapped up. This one surprisingly didn't have a move, but the July move was pretty big, I think. Let me go back. The July move was pretty interesting. So I think this one will most likely be one to one. Well, this is in phase. First one. Here we go. This makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, these earnings are always like very volatile. It's a gap up here, gap up, or gap down, then followed by a gap up. So this one for earnings is just going to be a play that I want to put some exposure on. For the July numbers, it did a gap up. Yeah, right here. August, it did a move up. But I'm thinking maybe doing the opposite for this one this time. So possibly maybe doing a put. What do you guys think? It is at a strong support. This one's just, it's just ridiculous if you look at the chart. So their earnings to, yeah, this is ridiculous. There's the level right there. Previous lows is the new high there. Pretty much close, spot on. About $3 off, but yeah, pretty close. So actually this looks bullish right now, honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you. We've got like a you would say a channel or something. Nah, it's not a channel. Is it a channel? Could be forming a channel. I was trying to form a bear flag, but this is too slow. It's not steep enough to be a bear flag, but it can still be a channel. I think this one has room to go up higher going into earnings. You can say this is maybe like a cup forming a handle here. So I'm thinking it's gonna go back up to 210, about $10 move, $13 move. This is a very strong support also. So holding above, what is it, like 195, 196? Yeah, I think if it holds above that, we're bullish. So basically this gap area right here, we've already filled it. Now we're going up higher, retracing a bit, and then probably go higher. So I like this one. This is the two major levels, the 195 and then the 230 level. You could also say this one's important too, like the 210. You want to add that one just because we've got some history there, and then previously got wick there. But I think this one has potential to keep going up. So this is a Thursday earnings. It reports on Thursday. If market cools off Tuesday, Wednesday, we could kind of trade upwards, maybe break the 200, then we'll probably go up high to 210 pretty fast. But yeah, as long as it's above 195, let's look at the expected move for this one real quick. Our solar, about 7%, $13. Makes sense. So if it was to report around this price, it would be to about 210, and then down here it'd be like 185, I think. Is that, yeah, about 184, 85. But yeah, a lot of people's eyes are gonna be on in phase. I'm gonna actually play First Solar. So right now we've got First Solar, Crocs, Alphabet for sure. Meta is a difficult one. I want to wait for these earnings to get a better idea of Meta. Like I said, if these are pretty good, Meta will probably go back up and retest the 315 highs, in my opinion. If it's bad, then it's over, and it's gonna start filling the gap. I think the gap. So Meta has a gap, a long gap. We'll start with the first one, like 233. He'll start filling that gap and then another gap. But yeah, that 287 is a very strong support. 285, let's just say 287 or 285, like around here. Once it starts breaking down that, then people do start to panic. I don't think it has any more gaps to the upside. So, I mean, that doesn't mean it's not going to go higher, but for Meta, I would wait to get an idea of these two. Microsoft, you would want to get puts on Microsoft, but just because of where it's at right now. But it's just, I've learned the hard way from Apple that even though it's trading near the highs, the market will kind of trade it sideways and kill your premium for earnings, and then the next day it's going to do its move. So that's the same thing I'm thinking with Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia. Historically, like obviously that last Nvidia earnings was an outlier because it short squeezed basically, but a lot of the big techs are, Tesla's like the number one. Like, just don't play Tesla earnings, wait for the day after. But I think the same thing's gonna happen with Microsoft. It just doesn't really move as much as you would think. Like here's another one. Like, yes, it sometimes has its gap downs, but for the most part, it's just really not worth it. See, there's one right there. Didn't really move. So I would wait for earnings, post earnings from Microsoft, just because it's trading past. You would, like I said, you would want to get puts just because where it's at. But they're going to mention something about AI. They're going to mention, yeah, I think they did some news, some crazy news on AI about them selling it per user or something like that. Not per company, but per user that would charge something with AI. And so basically they can technically add, I think, some of their revenue projections based off revenue they haven't earned, which is kind of like a loophole or something. It was kind of like what Theranos was making or doing, like writing down earnings that they hadn't made. So I don't want to play Microsoft. I just want to stay away from it. But I think, oh, Spotify is a good one. Spotify is interesting because they just announced that they're going to raise their prices, which is kind of sad because I really enjoy Spotify. Honestly, I was going to buy Spotify down here. I mean, obviously, everybody's going to say, I wish I bought the bottom, or I was going to buy the bottom. This one was one I was actually going to buy because I use the product. I love the product. I use it a lot. So this is one that I was going to just buy and hodl. But now I think this one's going to be interesting to the downside because it has had a huge run. The prices are going up. I know that would be good technically, but it could also mean it loses users, because if it's competing with Apple pricing now, then some people might just leave Spotify and go to Apple. Back then when Spotify was kind of like the cheaper bargain deal, like for subscription, people would like, okay, I got Spotify and it's cheaper. But now if it's going to be same cost as Apple and some of the other stuff, some people might switch. So that's why I think this one does have some risk to the downside now. Let's look at expected moves for Spotify. This is probably the only one that I would most likely get puts. I normally would get calls on this one because I always say Spotify, nobody's going to cancel their subscription because music is just a very big part of people's lives. And they had a good, price point. But now that they're increasing that, some people could be swayed to change. So it'd be interesting to see any news on their earnings. But I think, like the earnings call and stuff. But I think for earnings play, this will be the first time I want to play puts. I usually want to play calls. I've played some calls historically on this one. It's not like a big position. I probably get like 2 contracts or 1 contract. And they usually do good. But now I want to get the puts because it's ran up high. What did I say? 8%? What's the move? 8.6, which is $14. Oh, shoot. Okay, so this one will probably come down to what, like 160, 155. That would be nice. It's on Tuesday at market open. It didn't really come down much. I mean, it came down $10. there any gaps on this side? Nope, no gaps. There's this gap right here, 180, but I think I already filled it. I already filled that gap. There's no other gaps here that I see. Yeah, I want to play Spotify to the downside, unfortunately. I think this one would be the first time. Not very helpful with the earnings, honestly, but I think they're just trading up, right? So it's up like 100%. About 100%. Like 130, 120%. And they miss, right? They always miss. So I think this time when they miss, it's actually going to hit them. It usually doesn't hit them for real. It kind of just sideways or down. Also, there were some options in here that Snorlax mentioned for next week. The 160 puts, 1500 at 500k, 500,000 that's position. That's a pretty good size. Then you have the 200 puts. Oh, this is looking like a credit debit, a call debit, a call. It looks like it would be this is selling and buying. This is bearish, I think. Basically what they're doing is they're buying these in case it squeezes, and they're selling the 185s for 3 million, which is bearish technically. Yeah, I'm gonna look to play Spotify to the downside. That's what I'm gonna add to the list. So, oh, last one I'll cover is Royal Caribbean. I normally would talk about the semiconductors, but nothing's gonna happen till AMD reports, at least, or Nvidia. Texas Instrument, it will be it's just not gonna move, so it's not worth playing. And Roku is a good one. I don't really want to talk about Roku because Roku, it's just a premium stealer. So let's just talk about RCO. This is one that I would want to play to the downside, just based off of like where it's trading at. Like it's at $40, $36. It's like at 300% now, and it just filled this gap that it was working on. So there really isn't more incentive to go back to the all-time highs, 2018 levels. I mean, there's definitely the possibility, but I would be more inclined to trade it to the downside. Let's look at the expected move for this one. RCL. It's 6.3%, so about $6. I'm gonna wait for maybe Tuesday or Wednesday to look at this position, because it looks like it came down, retraced, and now it's breaking highs. What could happen with this one though is it could get rejected at this level, so it would make a double top. I would be looking for that. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we get a better idea if it can break these highs. Let me add a resistance level here. It's like 103, 105. This one might be an easy short, I think. But what we're saying about $6, about $6 to the downside. About 97. I would just go with the one. What did I say? We didn't look at the options for Meta, did we? It's a difficult one though. Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean. Oh, there's 2,000 here. That's for 95. Oh, this is for this week. Go to next week. There we go. Okay, so there's 1,000 on the 110s, 3,000 on the 105s, and 1,500. Not really that much downside other than the 100s. Yeah, I'd probably look at the 100s. I wouldn't look at anything else because, yeah, it might just not move. There was a lot of volume on these though. There's hardly any volume. Open interest is, I mean, obviously to the call side, but the volume on the 100s is more interesting. There's volume going into the 100s, so I'll be adding those. Yeah, I'll be looking to play this one to the downside Tuesday, Wednesday for a potential double top. And then, I mean, this thing could... So the reason I like this one is because I actually made some money on CCL. Wait, no. Yeah, I did. No, I made money on UAL. This was... I did make some money on CCL, I thought. You had like a mini double top there. It broke. Now it looks like it's consolidating. Not exactly sure where this one is at quite yet. I'll be waiting for a break of this trend. There was some... Oh, Delta Airlines is the one I made money off. I made some money on this one. This one's forming a double top too, it looks like. If it doesn't break that 49 level, then it could be formed. This is interesting. Could be forming a double top here too. That's gonna be... This is a watch. I'm gonna add travel stocks. So that's the RCO, the CCL, the Delta Airlines. I'm gonna add a lot of these stocks to my watch list because a lot of the charts look like they have this double top formation possibly forming. And I mean, there's just a lot of opportunity there. And that's with a lot of stocks. CCL might be taking a little bit longer. This one actually might, what it might do is come down, come back up as a double bottom here, come back up, not break it, and then go the long way and form a double top there. Could be doing that, but I would just keep this this ascending support here. Keep that there. And then the other one is RCO, which, like I said, this one might be forming a double top too. So here, possibly here. I'll show you guys where some of these... So Mara was one that I was watching. This is probably better on the one. So this is another one. This was forming a head and shoulders. Kind of going off script right now, but this is a head and shoulders talked about on Twitter. If this one falls back underneath this like 1670, this area right here, that means this head and shoulders is most likely going to fill, and it'll probably come down to 14.5. So definitely keep this one on watch too, actually. But yeah, I think we did a pretty quick overall coverage of some of these that I'm interested in. Teladoc, not really too interested. So basically, Alphabet, Microsoft, Spotify, Meta, Crocs, First Solar, and RCO. AT&T, if anything, I would play to the upside, but I don't really know the stock that well. I just see it's at the lows. Oh, it gapped up. Okay. I remember it trading down here. I didn't know it gapped up. Interesting. It's still very cheap though. Like, it's got a dividend, and yeah, it's trading at like 1993, 94 levels. It's insane. Their dividend is not bad, I don't think. Let me look at what they do for dividend. 27 cents. It's not bad. Not bad. This is the fourth day. This will be the third day it went up after that gap down. That's kind of crazy. If you were to get calls here, they would already be up 10%. Or if you were to just get shares, you would be up 10%. Wow. It has a gap right here that it's trying to fill. I think it's going to go to 15 for sure. Now it's got a gap down here too, but AT&T might be interesting. But I think that's all I'm going to do for the video. It was just a welcome back video. I just didn't really have much planned. Just kind of go over some stocks. The beginning of earnings, the sentiment drivers and stuff. And then we'll have Powell and stuff on Wednesday, but the week after will be big because I think we'll get Amazon and Apple. So we'll be on the lookout for that. And I'll see if I can make some more videos and stuff. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. I've got some stuff I'm going to do later today, so I'm going to wrap this video up. See you guys in the next one.